So happy Father's Day. And since it was Father's Day 2 months ago when Keeson was saying, what's the topic? I said, well, I guess it'll be something about Father's Day. And then this everyday mind is the true way, is kind of a constant teaching point from a Zen point of view. And then on the website, I also put the last line of the Diamond Sutra, which is a sister sutra to the Heart Sutra. And it's quite poetic, and it's also kind of scary. So I'll just read that, since it has to do with the talk today. So this is Buddha speaking to one of his students named Subhuti. All compounded things are like a dream. So all compounded things are like a dream, a phantom, a drop of dew, a flash of lightning. That is how to meditate on them. That is how to observe them. All compounded things are like a dream, a phantom, a drop of dew, a flash of lightning. That is how to meditate on them. That is how to observe them. So all compounded things, that's everything we experience. Because everything we experience is made up of a bunch of smaller things. Part of my talk today is being given by the lunch I had, right? If I hadn't had noodles at slurping ramen, I wouldn't have the energy to give the talk. So all of us are compounded things. So if we're meditating on ourselves as a very handy compounded thing, it's very nearby, what happens if we look upon it as a dewdrop or a flash of lightning? It gets very interesting, actually, and it can be either really terrifying or it can be really freeing. I'm going to encourage you to go to the freeing posture because there's a real benefit there. There's a real opportunity for healing and a real opportunity to help the world. So the basic function of practice is to help ourselves become clear, and then we can help this world in whatever predicament we're in, whatever circumstances. So Father's Day, Father is a really loaded word. And why is that? Mother is also a very loaded word. Why is that? We say, from a Buddhist view, that's karma. The simplest translation of karma is action. That's the simplest translation. A little more complicated translation is causes and conditions. But those are action. But feelings and thoughts usually cause an action to appear. So my father and mother had feelings and thoughts, and action appeared, and then I appeared. All of us have that same dynamic. Whether our parents are alive or dead, whether they were good or not so good, whether they were wholehearted and generous, whether they were confused and suffering, all of us have come from a cause and a condition. And so that's our deepest karma. Those are the actions that affect us in the tightest way. My teacher, Sung-san, he described karma this way. He said, first imagine a great big wave. This is a big wave where all the people in the wave are sharing the same karma. So this would be like the wave of the United States. We are all sharing United States karma. But then inside the big wave, there's a slightly smaller wave. So this is like the wave of California. Everybody in California has a bunch of similar karma, causes and conditions, but it's inside the big wave of the United States. Then inside the wave of California, there's a smaller wave, Los Angeles and Long Beach. So this is a smaller wave inside the California wave, inside the United States wave. So then we get to our father or our mother, that's the smallest wave. So the causes and conditions that are influencing us are coming from our mother, our father, our grandmother, our grandfather, our great-grandmother, our great-grandfather. Also, every action we take, and often every speech we make, even when our body disappears, has an effect on the world. So if my grandparents took a bunch of actions, it still has an effect on me. I'm taking action with my children, my friends, my relatives, and that's having an effect on this world. I'll disappear. This body will disintegrate, guaranteed. But our actions and our speech will reverberate through the people that we love, the people that we don't love, everybody we come in contact with. So the question is, what are we doing? And why are we doing it? And we don't want to be tight about that question. We want to be kind of relaxed and open-hearted. What are we doing? And why are we doing it? Because if we can become wide, wisdom will be able to appear. Because wisdom is unknowable prior to appearing. Wisdom comes out of the situation we're in. It comes out of the causes and conditions we're in, and those are always changing. And even in something as apparent as fatherhood, or motherhood for that matter, a good father appears in the immediate condition. And that's also when a bad father appears in the situation, with the relationship, and the function. So if an awake person is trying to be a good father or a good mother, what we're called to do is pay attention to the moment we're in. And that's how being a good mother or being a good father will appear. We will benefit, and our children will benefit if they're there, or our family will benefit. It's incredibly simple if we're able to let go of all of the stories about what a good father is, or all the stories about what a good mother is, and just pay attention. What am I right now? Who are these people right now? And what is my relationship to them, and what is the function? You'll notice I'm phrasing it as a question. What is the function? That way, we stay open. Our mind-heart is able to stay open, and we can see what's going on around us. Also, that way, the person in the role of father or the person in the role of mother can change, because their ears and eyes are open, and they'll hear what their children are saying, of what kind of father they need, what kind of mother they need. And sometimes the children are in a dream. They are not clear. And sometimes the parent is in a dream, and the parent is not clear. Everybody takes turns being clear and not being so clear. And in Buddhism, we use this expression clarity because it has no real value attached to it normally. So you can be clear and still be upset. You can be clear and be joyful. You can be clear and be anxious. You can be clear and be aggressive. If the situation calls for aggression, or if the situation calls for sadness, the clarity stays. One of the teaching poems says, it, our true nature, and dust, which is the world, the conditioned world, completely interpenetrate. So what we normally think of as an unhappy or suffering realm is not absent. Our Buddha nature is not absent. It's actually not possible for it to be separated out. And the teaching poem says to us, the mind is no hindrance, and without any hindrance, there is no fear. That's a line in the Heart Sutra. So the mind is no hindrance is telling us, oh, I could have a Catholic mind and wisdom is still able to appear. I can have a Muslim mind and wisdom still appears. I could have a Jewish mind and wisdom still appears. So all of these things that we call name and form don't hinder wisdom, compassion, kindness. We begin to suffer when we attach to the story connected to all the name and form. It's remarkably easy to just not attach. We let go of our opinion, we let go of our idea, we let go of I, my, me, and then we just hold a question, like, what is actually going on? This world is really suffering. If we look at this world, our heart will break. That's because we are Buddhas. When your heart breaks watching the news, that's a sign that you have Buddha nature. Your love and compassion is cracking open. And rather than push that away, from a practicing point of view, we welcome it in. Ah, okay, my heart's breaking. Now, what do I do? If we follow a story, we're not going to find out what to do. Remember, we let go of the narrative. We let go of the story of Ukraine, the story of Russia, the story of Israel, the story of Gaza. I'm not saying don't look at the suffering. Let go of all of the story. Then what is my situation, my relationship, my function? And then wisdom can appear. And everybody knows what that is if they just take a few minutes to look. When the sorrow appears, when the grief over the suffering in the world appears, do not push it away. The grief is the doorway in to the wisdom. Our habit is to just push suffering away. But suffering is where we get to wisdom. And once we get to wisdom, we can transform. First, we transform ourselves. Then we're able to transform the people near us. And then we begin to transform the world. Yeah, it seems gigantic and completely overwhelming. That's a story. Don't worry about scale. Don't worry about how big the world is. Don't worry about the climate catastrophe. Because anxiety does not help. Worrying doesn't lead to wisdom. But if we let ourselves suffer, suffering leads to wisdom. Because it gives us a big question. What am I doing? And why am I doing it? And then we just trust ourselves. We trust our direct experience. And then what we should do becomes clear. Also, what we say becomes clear. Because our speech comes out of our feeling, thinking, our heart, mind. So we want our speech to be clear, and then we want our actions to be clear. Everything we need, we already have. Then when we have things like aspirations for a career or a nice house or a beautiful partner or a big, beautiful family, that's all very wonderful. That's not where our happiness comes from. Our happiness comes from understanding ourselves. Then the function of all those things, the career, ambition, family, nice house, providing for people, taking care of people that we love, all of that comes out of understanding ourselves. Most of us reverse that. Oh, if I have a wonderful partner, then I'll be happy because I'll have someone to take care of. I'll have a good job to help me take care of that partner. Now I'll have this good job, this good partner. Now I have these good children. If our happiness depends on that, they all disappear. Sometimes they disappear quickly, and sometimes they disappear slowly, and we already know that in our gut. We already know all this could disappear at any moment. So what we're learning to trust is something that cannot disappear. This body, sure, will disappear, but this thing that's giving a talk right now, that does not disappear. Thich Nhat Hanh likes to say, to be or not to be is no longer the question. I'm a fan of Shakespeare, but look at that sentence, to be or not to be. Those are two poles, those are two extremes. Being as an extreme and not being as its opposite. You follow? Buddha is teaching us a middle way in between those two things. Because if I say I exist, I, my, me, then that can expire, that can disappear. And a nihilist view would say nothing exists. I don't exist, the sky doesn't exist, trees, cats, and dogs don't exist. That's also kind of philosophical bullshit. I mean, pardon the French, but it's just a bunch of ideas that clearly we're here. We all heard that. So this middle way is not being and also not being. And his way of explaining it is it's inter-be. So something's here, this is here, all of those are there, and we all depend on everything else. So the only thing we're empty of is a particular self. Everything else is full and arising together and completely interdependent. And that's clear if we just look. Our health is dependent on the health of the ocean. Our health is dependent on the health of the farmland. Our happiness is dependent on healthy food. It's just so clear. If we look at it with no story, and we just look at what's actually happening. As a species, we've developed all kinds of cultural things around the idea of father and around the idea of mother. And as a species, we've developed many, many different kinds of stories. A Catholic story about the role of a father and a mother, a Muslim story about the role of a father and a mother, a Jewish story about the role of a father and mother. Those are all stories. If they help take away suffering, great. I'm not bashing the story. I'm suggesting they are stories and respect them, appreciate them for the good they can do, but don't hold them so tightly. Say this is the story. Don't hold the story so tightly we don't see the wisdom in the story. Because a Muslim story, a Jewish story, a Catholic story, a Buddhist story, a Jain story, every kind of religious story always says be kind. Every single one. But then they aren't. Even Buddhism. The Buddhist monks in Myanmar, slaughtering Rohingya people. It's embarrassing to say. It's the tradition I've aligned myself with. Slaughtering, it's a genocide. We don't always hear about it. We hear about a bunch of other genocides. So yeah, human being attaching to story causes harm. Trusting a story and holding it loosely can discover wisdom. Any story, if we hold it too tightly, even the story of fatherhood or motherhood, will lead to suffering unless we hold it loosely and put some space around it. That kind of looseness, that kind of spaciousness I'm suggesting, you already have, you already did it today. Everybody, just about everybody, 30 minutes completely quiet. You sat still. You are a Buddha when you sit still. Because a thought feeling appears, you don't move your body. A thought feeling appears, maybe you follow the thought feeling for a few minutes, but then you come back. Maybe you got a little sleepy, but then you came back. Maybe you went into the future, but then you came back. Maybe you went into the past. Maybe you visited friends on the East Coast, but then you came back. That's the activity of a Buddha, being present now. And everybody else in Long Beach was not doing that. Everybody else was having a thought feeling and following it. Having a thought feeling and saying something. Have a thought feeling and doing something. So for their 30 minutes, making karma, making causing condition, making causing condition, making causing condition. But for your 30 minutes, no causing condition, just be here now. No causing condition except, oh, right now. No, right now. And whether you did it poorly or successfully doesn't even matter, because your intention was here and you stayed. So you accomplish that. The second thing that does is make spaciousness. You can't not make spaciousness when you do that, because you're here and your thoughts and feelings appear, but you didn't follow them. So instead of sticking to them and following them, it's spacious. This is also called mindfulness. It's the same point. So thought feeling appears, we don't follow it. So it stops being my thought. It's just a thought. It's just a feeling. That is wisdom. And we all already have it as soon as we act this way. We're able to see it. It doesn't, I phrased that wrong. We already have it regardless of what we do. But if we bring ourselves to a standstill, we have the opportunity to see it. And this is almost the first line of the Heart Sutra. It just sounds too fancy to realize it. Avalokiteshvara, that's a Sanskrit word. It just means, one translation, the one who looks deeply. So you become Avalokiteshvara. You did it today between 3 o'clock and 3:30. Well, you're always Avalokiteshvara. You're always the one who looks deeply. It's just between 3 and 3:30, you look deeply. And you see into, oh, all these things change, and I'm still here. Something hasn't changed, and it's witnessed something that does change. So we return to the thing that doesn't change. If I name it, Zen people don't like to name it. Other traditions will name it. The name's okay, too. But we just leave it unnamed, because it's always right there. We just return to it. We see, oh, all these things are changing. And once we see that, we're free of fear and suffering. if we trust it. It's sometimes too simple. It's like too easy. In the first 10 years of my meditation practice, I just didn't believe it. I just went, no, it can't be that simple. It's got to be more complicated. But that's because I had a complicated mind that wouldn't listen. And so I just did it over and over and over. And then finally, oh, this is extraordinarily simple. Just sit and look at the floor. That's all you have to do. In the heading, we had signlessness. That's achieving signlessness. So sign is looking at name and form and creating what it is. Not unlike a street sign, but also the name and form of this is it's a watch. But if we just look at it like a mirror, the mirror just reflects. So there's no cognition around this thing. The mirror just reflects it. The Diamond Sutra is saying every compounded thing is like a dream. What it's saying is don't attach to all of the compoundedness of it. Just relate to it directly. Relate to it directly and use it. And that's basic wisdom living in the world. When we're hungry, we eat. When we're tired, we rest. If we see somebody else who's hungry, we give them food. If we see people fighting, we don't become angry. We don't just reflect their anger. We try to say some speech that calms them down, that makes them feel heard, that makes them feel respected, that makes them feel seen. And as soon as you look deeply into someone else, you have become Avalokiteshvara. You're manifesting the one who sees deeply because you're looking deeply into someone else. It's there. The ability to do that is there all the time. The need to do that may not always be there when it comes to people, but we look into our experience as much as we can. If we have the courage to do that, the wholeheartedness to do that, then we're able to help. And we'll understand ourselves better, and we'll also understand the people around us. And once we do that, then it gets a little bigger and a little bigger. So 1 drop of water, of course, doesn't do anything. 30 drops of water does a little bit more. But a gallon of water, that goes into the river. And then the river goes somewhere. And it could be a peace river. And eventually help this world become peaceful.